I remember lying in bed one night, past midnight, house completely still, and realizing I'd been awake for over an hour going over the same things. Not anxious, just full, like my mind had nowhere left to put anything down. At some point, I stopped trying to sleep, and I said out loud in that quiet room, "I can't carry this anymore tonight." And something in me finally let go. That moment, that specific act of releasing it to God instead of holding it, is what I want to walk you through tonight. Because if you're lying there right now with a mind that won't stop, I don't want you to stay there alone. I make these prayers because I know what it's like to need one and have nothing to hold on to. Subscribe. There's a new prayer here every day, and I want this to be waiting for you tomorrow too. And if this prayer is meeting you where you are, a like helps more people find it. Now let's bring this to God together. So let's start right here. Right where you are. You're tired. Not just tonight. The kind of tired that's been building. The kind that doesn't leave after one good night of sleep. And yet here you are. Lying down. Eyes open. I remember what that used to look like for me. 11, maybe 11:30. The lamp off. The phone face down on the nightstand. Everything I was supposed to do to wind down. Done. And still within minutes the list started. The thing about work that wasn't finished. The conversation that didn't land right. The number I kept doing the math on, hoping it'd come out different. The person I was worried about and didn't know how to help. Maybe yours looks like that. Maybe it's one thing that keeps circling back. Or maybe it's not even something specific, just a weight. A tightness somewhere between your chest and your throat that was there when you woke up this morning and is still there now. At the end of everything. When it has no business still being there. Here's what I've learned about those nights. During the day, the weight gets carried without you noticing. There's too much happening. But the moment the room goes dark and the house settles, everything you didn't put down comes back up. All of it. At once. I used to think something was wrong with me. It took me a long time to understand that it wasn't weakness, it was weight. Real weight, with nowhere to go. And what I did with that weight, for years, made the nights longer than they needed to be. And what I did, for years, was fight it. Not consciously. But that's what it was. The moment the list started, I'd try to shut it down. The first thing I'd reach for was prayer. But the kind of praying that's really just negotiating. God, please just make this stop. Let me sleep. Repeating it like a request that just needed to be loud enough or long enough to finally go through. When that didn't work, I'd pick up the phone. Just for a minute. And I remember lying there with the screen lit up in the dark, scrolling through nothing, knowing it wasn't helping. But at least it was something to do with the restlessness instead of just lying there feeling it. And then there were the nights I'd try to think my way out. Go over everything on the list one by one. As if the problem was that I hadn't finished solving it yet. As if rest was something I had to earn before I could have it. I did all of this. Some nights. All of it in the same night. And I'd wake up the next morning still carrying everything I'd gone to bed with. It took me a long time to see what those three things had in common. And when I did, when I finally understood what I was actually doing every time I went through that routine, it changed everything about how I came to God at night. Here's what those three things had in common. Every single one of them was me trying to make the weight disappear. And I think that's where most of us start. Somewhere along the way, we picked up this idea that peace means the absence of what's bothering us. So we go after the weight, push it down, think it through, pray it away. Because we believe that if we can just get rid of it, then we can finally rest. There's a line I came back to during one of those nights. It doesn't say ask God to remove what's worrying you. It says cast your cares on Him. I'd read that before, many times. But that night I slowed down on the word cast. Cast is a physical word. It's not a request. It's a movement. You're not asking for something to disappear. You're moving it. From your hands to somewhere else. I remember sitting with that for a long time, because I realized I had never actually done that, not once. I had asked, I had begged. I had listed everything out loud like God needed the details to understand. But I had never just released the thing, put it down, let it be somewhere other than inside me. And I think I know why. Letting go felt like losing control. And losing control at 11:30 at night with everything still unresolved, that felt dangerous. Like if I stopped holding it, something would fall apart. So I kept holding. Tighter, actually. Dressed up as prayer, dressed up as problem solving, but holding. And the weight never moved. What I started to understand, slowly, not all at once, is that there's a difference between carrying something and transferring it. Not resolving it. Not suppressing it. Just moving it out of your hands. That distinction changed everything for me. And once it clicked, what I needed to actually do that night became very clear. Before I show you what that looks like, just one quick thing. Before we continue, just a moment. If what I just described is where you are tonight, that place of holding on when something in you knows it's time to let go, I want you to know that's exactly why we're here. Drop a word in the comments. Just one. Whatever describes how you're arriving here tonight, that's all. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, here's the piece. For a long time, I thought the goal of prayer at night was to feel peace. Like if I prayed well enough or long enough or with enough faith, the weight would lift. The thoughts would stop. And I'd finally be able to rest. But that's not what I found. What I found, and this took me longer than I'd like to admit, is that the goal isn't to feel peace before you sleep. The goal is to stop being the one responsible for carrying everything into tomorrow. There's a difference between those two things. A real one. When I was trying to feel peace, I was still holding everything. I just wanted to hold it more comfortably. I was asking God to change how the weight felt, but the weight was still in my hands. What changed for me was the moment I understood that God doesn't just want to comfort you while you carry it. He wants you to actually give it to Him. Not as a metaphor, not as a spiritual concept you agree with intellectually, as a real transfer, a deliberate moment where you name the thing, the specific thing, and you say, "This is not mine to hold tonight. I'm giving it to you." There's a line in Psalms, "Cast your cares on Him because He cares for you." The word cast is not passive. It's not let go and hope for the best. It's an active movement. You take something that's in your hands and you throw it somewhere else. On purpose. That image stopped me completely the first time I sat with it. Because I realized that everything I had been doing, all the negotiating, all the analyzing, all the praying for relief, had never involved actually letting go of the thing. I was holding and asking God to make the holding easier. He was waiting for me to throw it. That's the solution. Not better sleep habits. Not longer prayers. Not more faith manufactured in the dark. Just the honest, specific act of naming what you're carrying and throwing it. Tonight, that's what we're going to do together. And I want to show you exactly how. So here's what this actually looks like. Not as a ritual, not as a technique. Just something real that you can do tonight right where you are. The first thing is to stop trying to sleep. As long as you're lying there trying to force rest, part of your mind is still working, still holding. So for just a few minutes, stop. Tell yourself, "I'm not trying to sleep right now. I'm going to pray first." That small permission changes something. The effort stops, and you become available for something else. The second thing is to name what you're carrying, specifically. Not God, I give you all my worries. That's too wide to actually release, too abstract to hold on to. What is the actual thing that's been circling tonight? The number you keep doing the math on. The conversation that didn't land. The person you don't know how to help. The thing about tomorrow you can't stop turning over, say it out loud. Even just a whisper in the dark. I started doing this years ago. I'd be lying there at 11:30 and I'd just say the thing out loud, quietly, so only I could hear it. And what I found was that naming it precisely was the first step to letting go of it. You can't release something you're still keeping vague. The third thing is the transfer. Not asking God to fix it. Not asking God to make you feel better about it. Just this. God, this is the thing. I've been holding it. I'm giving it to you now. Not because it's resolved, not because I know how it ends, but because it was never mine to carry alone. That's the whole prayer if you need it to be. Work through the list one by one if there's more than one thing. Name it, transfer it, move to the next. When everything that's been circling has been handed over, you stop, you lie back, and you let yourself receive whatever comes next. The first night I prayed this way, I felt something I can only describe as a loosening. Not peace exactly. More like the relief of finally stopping the pretense that I could handle it alone. The weight didn't disappear, but it moved. Now, what can you actually expect when you start doing this? I want to be honest about that. Now, I want to be honest with you about this, because if I'm not, you might try what I just described tonight, and when it doesn't feel the way you expected, you'll think something went wrong, and you'll stop. So let me tell you what actually happens. The first few nights, you might not feel much. You'll name the things, you'll say the prayer, you'll hand it over, and then you'll lie there waiting for this wave of peace to wash over you. And it might not come. Not like that. Not right away. I remember the first week I started doing this consistently. Some nights I felt that loosening I described. Other nights I finished the prayer and still felt the weight, still heard the thoughts, still had to work to stay with it. And I almost talked myself out of continuing. But here's what I noticed. Not that first night, but after a few weeks of doing this honestly. The nights didn't always feel different, but the mornings did. I'd wake up and realize I hadn't spent half the night in the same loop. The things I'd named and handed over hadn't disappeared, but they'd stopped owning the night. There was something quieter about waking up, even when nothing in my circumstances had changed. That's usually what shifts first. Not a feeling during the prayer, but a different quality of rest. A morning that doesn't start with the same weight the night ended with. What takes longer is the deeper thing, the part where you stop reaching for the weight automatically. Where your first instinct when the list starts at 11:30 isn't to hold tighter, it's to give it away. That's a habit. And habits take time to form in the body. For me, it took a few months before that felt natural. Before the transfer felt less like an effort and more like breathing. So if you try this tonight and you don't feel peace, that's not failure. If you try this for a week and some nights still feel heavy, that's not the practice not working. What you're building isn't a feeling. You're building a reflex, a way of ending the day that doesn't leave you alone with everything you were never supposed to carry. And the nights you do feel it, the loosening, the quiet, the sense that something has genuinely shifted, those nights will remind you why you kept going. They will come. But before you get there, I want to tell you about a few things that can get in the way, even when you're doing everything right, because I ran into all of them, and I don't want you to be caught off guard. So you've started the practice. You know the steps. And still, something gets in the way. Here's what that usually looks like. The first one is naming the thing, but not releasing the thing. You say the prayer. You hand it over. But somewhere in the middle of it, you're already thinking about the thing, turning it over, analyzing it, trying to process it while you're supposed to be giving it away. The prayer becomes thinking out loud to God, instead of actually transferring anything. I did this constantly in the beginning. I'd spend 10 minutes giving it to God, and by the end I'd gone through every angle of the problem. I felt like I'd prayed, but I'd actually just reviewed the situation one more time with my eyes closed. The fix is catching that moment when the prayer shifts from transfer to analysis, and stopping. You don't need to understand the thing to release it. Name it, give it, move on. The understanding is not your job tonight. The second one is repicking it up and not noticing. You transfer it. You fall asleep. And somewhere around 3 in the morning the thought is back, and you're already in it before you realize what happened. This one is subtle, because it doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like the thought just appeared. And in a way it did. The mind does this automatically, especially with things that carry real weight. The mistake isn't that it came back. The mistake is treating its return as evidence that the transfer didn't work, and starting the whole thing over. Reanalyzing, re-worrying, re-holding. I used to wake up at 3 and spend an hour going back through everything I'd already given away. By morning, I was exhausted from carrying something I'd already let go of once. What I learned: when it comes back, you don't need to start over. You just need one sentence. I already gave this to you. It's still yours. Say it and stop engaging with the thought. That's the whole response. The third one is doing the transfer quickly to get it over with. This one is easy to miss because it looks like the practice. You're naming things, you're saying the prayer, you're going through the steps, but you're rushing, getting it done so you can finally sleep. And when you rush it, the transfer stays on the surface. The words go out, but the weight doesn't move, because you never actually stop to mean it. I noticed this in myself on the busier nights, the nights when I was more tired and more desperate to sleep. Ironically, those were the nights I rushed the most, and those were the nights it worked the least. The practice needs at least one moment of genuine stillness, not long, just real. One breath where you actually stop and mean what you're saying before you move to the next thing. The fourth one is measuring the night instead of trusting the practice. You wake up in the morning and immediately assess, did I sleep well? Did the peace come? Was last night better or worse than the night before? And if the answer isn't clearly better, you start doubting whether the whole thing is working. But that kind of measuring puts you back in effort mode, as if rest is something you have to evaluate and optimize rather than receive. I did this for weeks. I'd wake up and run a mental scorecard on the night. Some mornings I felt better. Others I didn't. And on the mornings I didn't, I'd carry a low-level doubt into the day about whether I was doing it right. What broke that pattern for me was deciding to stop grading the nights entirely. The practice is the practice. What it produces, and when, is not your department. You now have the full picture. The path, the honest expectations, and the four things that can quietly undo the work even when you're trying. There's one thing left, and it's the most practical part. How to actually build this into the rhythm of your nights starting tonight. So here's the plan. And I'm going to keep it simple. Because simple is what actually gets done. Tonight, just tonight, do one thing. When you lie down, before you try to sleep, take 3 minutes. That's it. 3 minutes where you stop trying to sleep and you pray instead. Name one thing. Just one. The thing that's been loudest tonight. Say it out loud, even just a whisper. Give it to God, mean it, and then stop. You don't need to go through the whole list on the first night. You don't need to feel anything. You don't need to do it perfectly. One thing, named, transferred, released. That's the minimum. And the minimum is enough to start. This week, build the habit of ending the day differently. Not a long ritual. Not a complicated practice, just a consistent moment, same time, same intention, where you put the day down before you close your eyes. 5 minutes is enough. You're not adding a new obligation to your night. You're replacing the part where you used to lie there holding everything, with a practice of letting it go instead. If some nights are shorter, that's fine. If some nights you fall asleep in the middle of it, that's fine too. The consistency matters more than the length. In the first few weeks, don't measure. Just show up. This is the most important part of the plan. Don't assess whether it's working after 3 nights. Don't compare Tuesday to Thursday. Don't look for a pattern yet. Just show up. Name the things. Give them away. And trust that something is building even when you can't see it. The measurement can come later, when you look back and notice that something shifted. And it will shift, but not if you're watching for it every morning. And if you can only do one thing starting tonight, just this. Before you close your eyes, say out loud, God, I can't carry this alone tonight. I'm giving it to you. That's the whole practice in one sentence. You can build everything else around it later. But that sentence, meant honestly, said out loud in the dark, is where it starts. That's the plan. You have everything you need. The path, the practice, the honest picture of what to expect, and now the simplest possible way to begin. What happens next is between you and God. But I can tell you from where I've been, it's worth starting tonight. You remember where we started, past midnight, House completely still. That feeling of being full, mind running, weight that had nowhere to go, lying there alone with everything you were carrying. That's where we started. And look where we are now. Not because the list disappeared, not because tomorrow's going to be easy, but because you don't have to go into it carrying tonight alone. If this prayer has been something real for you, if something shifted even a little, drop a word in the comments. Just one. Whatever describes where you are now compared to where you started. You don't have to explain it. One word is enough. And when someone else finds this video on a hard night, they'll see your word there and know they're not alone either. If you know someone who lies awake like this, someone who's been carrying too much for too long, send them this. That's all. Just send it. Sometimes the most honest thing we can do for someone we love is say, I found something that helped me. Maybe it'll help you too. And if you want this kind of prayer to be part of every night, not just tonight, there's a new one here every single day. Subscribe, and tomorrow night there'll be something waiting for you. You showed up tonight. That means something. Rest well.